And it's Al Lewis, KVNU News, and we appreciate you joining with us this morning. We have been promoting the fact that we have something we think really exciting. I know I've been excited to be able to get this news on the air for Northern Utah and Southern Idaho Aggie fans, and we welcome into KVNU this morning Interim Athletic Director Jerry Bovee from Utah State University. And Jerry, the announcement for, again, the fans of this area today is?
Well, the big news is we're back on local radio. When I left Utah State in the mid-'90s out, we were on this station, and when I came back, we weren't. And we've been talking about it for a long time, but we finally arrived at a good place, and we're excited to be back on
KVNU.
KVNU.
When will the Aggies be back on KVNU? That's been, I know I've heard that question repeatedly for the last 7 years that I've been doing pregame and postgame things and all. So we will have football and basketball games here on KVNU.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so how did this all happen, Jerry? I mean, it's been a while when we've wanted to have this happen in the Valley, and it hasn't.
Well, I came back, as you know, as the deputy in 2019. I think you were one of the first people I saw when we got back. I'll let you tell that.
Jerry told me, the first thing he told me is we got to fix this radio thing locally. So it's been in the works, but now it's really escalated here this last year.
Yeah, we've been talking. Kent Franson, kudos to him for sitting down at the table. And when I got back into town, and I'll give some credit to John Hartwell on this because he said we've got to resolve this. So I had a relationship before I left the Valley, and I called Kent and said, let's get together for lunch. And it just started some conversations. Now it's taken 4 years and a lot of changes in athletics at this point, but we're really excited. He and I, as well as Eric and others, James, and then our partners at Learfield, David Reeve has been key to this. We have a general manager in this role with our multimedia rights that's from the Valley and actually is an alum at Utah State.
You know what David told me the first time he saw me? He says, "You're Al Lewis, aren't you?" And I talked to him. He says, "My dad told me I've got to fix the radio thing when I came back to the Valley." And
I think all the stars have aligned on this. And when it all comes down to it, this is a relationship business.
Well, I just told you that for the majority of people at a basketball game for sure, and a football game, a majority, which may be lesser because people can come from Salt Lake for a one-time deal. But for the most part, they're all right here in northern Utah, southern Idaho. Box Elder County has been a place that's really missed out, too, on radio broadcasts the last little while. But then we'll now have it with KVNU back on.
Yeah, I mean, this gives Aggie Athletics access to at least 100,000 listeners in northern Utah, and that's our base. We cannot, I mean, obviously, the Wasatch Front's important to us. We have thousands and thousands of alums that live along the Wasatch Front, but you know, I've always been frustrated over the years when folks come in from out of town here and decide to take the message elsewhere and forget the core, which is right here in the Valley in northern Utah. So we're going to have premier coverage in northern Utah. We'll still have premier coverage in the Salt Lake area and along the Wasatch Front on KZNS, but we're going to partner this together and go big, and I think this is going to be good for us. It's going to be good for our fans, season ticket holders. They'll be able to bring their transistor radios, dust them off, and bring them into the games and be able to hear it clear right here in the Valley.
KVNU has let me know that the deal that is done, we will continue our very popular pregame and postgame coverage that I will be doing and producing, and then we'll go to Scott Gerard and Kevin White for football, and Scott and Spencer Nelson for basketball. So we'll go to those broadcasts, and then we'll be back on with our postgame after they are done. So we'll have the Aggie call after the game where people can interact with texts and phone calls and things like that. We'll continue all of that. So and football and basketball coaches shows too.
That's correct.
That a lot of people have missed the last little while in this area. In fact, I've even tried to sometimes pick them up on whatever was available here in the Valley, and sometimes they didn't even carry those things. So that'll be on.
Yeah. So
too.
Really, in my mind, we go worldwide now. It's interesting that we've been saying in the void of local radio and a partnership that we are worldwide. It can be streamed everywhere, and as I look at the statistics of where people are listening, it is all over the world. But we've kind of forgotten our base right here in the Valley, and it was hard to find unless you were adept at streaming and figuring that all out. So, and those that want to do that will still have access to that. I jokingly said to Kent in one of our first meetings, "You've got great bookends, but you have no books between it." And now, it's all there.
It is. And so back to the 40s when KVNU started with the Aggie broadcasts with Utah State and went into the 50s and went into the 60s. And there were times when it went to KBLQ and KVNU during that period of time back and forth. And there was one other stretch where there was another station in Logan that had them for a while. But for the most part, all of the Aggie stuff for the, really 40s to now, that's getting close to 80 years, has been on KVNU of the Aggies. And that's great that we'll have all that action back on, plus all the pregame, postgame, talk during the week, all of those things. We do have our sports talk station in our building that will talk more about the Aggies and be able to have a little more access there as well on 106.9 FM, The Fan. The women's games, they tell me, are going to be on 107.7 FM, which the women's games have only been kind of streamed for the last little while as well, the women's basketball games too.
Yeah, and I don't want to have this whole process lost on that. That is a big deal for us as we work to build our women's basketball program, to have local radio to continue to build. I mean, we've got a long way to go. I hear the fans out there talking about their frustrations with women's basketball. We'll get that right. But having a place to put the games on so people can hear and participate, I think, is a huge thing moving into the new world. So for us, it's a no-brainer. It's taken a while for us to get here in the conversations because, frankly, when this all separated out, there was a lot of consternation and feelings that got in the way. And as I've come back into town, and even in the 8 going on 9 months in this role as interim, every event we have where there's Q&A with our fan base, I hear it. I mean, loud and clear, it was, you got to get this fixed. Why can't we figure this out? And like I said, I think the stars have aligned here with the relationships that are in place and the trust to begin to rebuild this. So we couldn't be happier about this announcement.
Oh, just a second. I've got another hand up in the room here, and I got to turn a microphone over that direction there. Sorry about that, Eric. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I just, I've been lucky enough to be involved in these discussions with Jerry and a few others here in the building over these last, couple of years, but more so the last 8 or 9 months. But this deal would not have happened without the efforts of Jerry Bovee. I mean, this, as you mentioned, this is a relationship business. Whenever we would meet with Jerry, I think people need to understand that we always felt hopeful that something could be worked out. And we have to give credit to him for making us feel comfortable getting to a spot where we are today. Because we don't need to get into all the details, but there were aspects of these negotiations that were not comfortable for us and for Learfield and maybe for Utah State a little bit too, but we worked it out. And if not for Jerry's dedication to Utah State athletics and trying to make sure that his fan base, the fans of his institution, were best served, this deal wouldn't have happened. And have to give him a lot of credit for his patience, his willingness to come down here and listen to us kind of rehash old wounds and try to heal those and mend fences. And give him a lot of credit. David Reeve with Aggie Sports Properties, have to give him some credit as well. It makes a big difference knowing that there's an administrator who's from here, or at least has connections here, and somebody with Learfield who was from here, spent time at the institution. They know the local DNA, and they understand what's going on. And they're not, and it's not necessarily, it's not necessarily a shot to anybody else, but it does make a big difference understanding the local culture and understanding the players in our community. And I have to give Jerry a lot of credit for that.
I appreciate that, Eric. You're right. Early on, it was difficult. I had to listen because there were a lot of feelings about the way things went down when the relationship ended. And I think that's important that we needed to listen to you to get a perspective of how that went from your perspective, and those are real things. I mean, everyone has their own take on how all this goes down, and we don't want to spend a lot of time on that. I appreciate the sentiment because this is important to me. I started my career right here in Logan, Utah, at Utah State. From a young age for me, I wanted to be part of, I met Merlin Olsen, and I won't go into that whole story, but there's a very personal story for me with Merlin Olsen, and I wanted to be an Aggie at that point. So it may seem to some like this is just another thing. To me, it's not. It's listening to our fan base, reacting to what they wanted, and then coming down to mend some fences that needed to be mended. And this is a huge thing for us. Our friends at Learfield, from a corporate standpoint, they understand it, but they don't understand it like we do because they don't live here, other than David being our representative, and he gets it. And it's been, I give a lot of credit to him because he sat in the room and had to take his licking too, right? It's been a long time. It's been conversations, developing trust again. You protected your brand, and honestly, the brand that your dad has accumulated in this valley is unreal. I mean, you are the voice on traditional over-the-air radio in northern Utah. There's nobody else, and he's worked hard over the years to develop that. So, it's taken some time, but we've arrived there. We've been talking about it a long time. For us, this is old news, but for those that really have been asking for this, and it really fits all the demographic of our fan base. We have some that have bought season tickets for 50 years that really haven't understood how streaming all works or how to get things on your cell phone. I had a call a couple of days ago from one of our loyal fans who's been buying season tickets for 50 years, and he's like, "You've got to figure this out. I don't understand how to work this deal. I just want to listen to it on my way home." So you'll come in to the broadcast about 15 minutes before. You'll have, and for me, it's added conversations about the Aggies. That's all good. So you'll have your pregame show. We'll have a pregame show that starts in Salt Lake, and then at 15 minutes before game time, you'll join this network, and we're live. So Scott Gerard's excited. He's called me. Interestingly, people might say, well, why would he want this? He started his career right here in this building.
Yes, he did.
And this is important to him to be part of this. He has a lot of respect for Al. He's told me he's learned so much from being with Al over the years and starting his career here. So to me, it's a culmination of Aggies coming together to do what's best for Aggies. And
yep,
we're excited.
It ends 7 years again of being asked, when will the Aggies be back on KVNU? KVNU is back with the Aggies now. Broadcasting football, basketball games, coaches shows, football, basketball, coaches shows. KVNU, 610 AM, 102.1 FM, 102.5 FM, 98.3 FM in Tremont, 93.5 FM in Garden City, and northern Utah, southern Idaho, again, back in to being able to hear.
That's music to my ears, Al.
That's what we've got, everything like that. So that's the reason why we wanted you to come in and make the announcement this morning.
I appreciate the invite.
And I know you've got another meeting you got to get to here the next little bit. But, again, it's busy, but we appreciate you very much. And, Eric, appreciate you, James, people from Learfield and the Aggie Sports Properties and all. And it's a win for the fans, and it's a win for the advertisers. It's a win for the business people in this valley who, again, want to be associated with the Aggies as well, to be able to have the best opportunity for them to be able to get their word out on broadcasts of basketball and football games.
Yeah,
too.
no question. For us in the business, it's more content for us. And right now I'm working on a local TV deal. We've got 4 home games that are not covered on the national broadcast, and so we're working with our friends in Salt Lake to see if we can come together so that all of our football games this year, home and away, will be on television and now on radio.
There we go. All right, anything else, guys?
No, just thank you, Al. I mean, this also doesn't happen without his heritage, really, and Al's voice and his rich history and knowledge of Aggie history and passion for Aggie sports. Because of him, we're able to weather this gap. Yep. But this is a big thing to move forward, but still tap into Al's passion.
The number
and
one thing I wanted before I ever walk away from KVNU someday would be I want the games back where people can hear them locally, and that's what I would continue to tell everybody. So now we've got that back.
I think I heard that even when I was down the street at Weber State when we'd run into each other, and you were the first person I called when I got to the Valley. So kudos to you and really all of us. This is a win for our fans.
That's it. So thank you all for coming in, and thank you again for getting this all done, and we appreciate the fans and listeners who have stuck with us for pregame, postgame. It'll still be there, and we'll have games as well. So thank you, guys.
Go Aggies.